Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are extremely excited to be starting this group. It's something that I've been passionate about and have wanted to do for years, and we're finally getting around to it. This is something very special to me, to Dr. Faust, and hopefully today we'll just give you a rundown of what this is going to be, what it's going to look like, and hopefully have you be part of our coalition. Okay, so in today's kickoff, what we want to do is go through our background. So talk a little bit about myself, mine, talk about Dr. Faust Flowering Physiology Lab, give you an intro to the CRC, what we're about, what we want to do, what it looks like for you, how it benefits you, how it benefits the industry. We want to talk about a little bit of the current research we have going on now, and have been for quite a while. We want to talk about the timeline, and we also want to open it up at the end, have questions, and hopefully make you comfortable with what we're doing and continue this work together. So I wanted to give just a little bit of background where you can understand where we're coming from and why I feel we're lined up pretty well to do this research in hemp. Dr. Faust has been doing research in hemp for a couple of years now, and I've been doing it since about 2015. But prior to that, and the way I know Dr. Faust is he was my major professor during my PhD. And so during that time, our work, now a lot of his work still, is in floriculture, looking at ornamental flowering plants. But it actually lines up quite beautifully because a lot of the work we did with these other types of plants is extremely applicable to what we need and what we want to see in cannabis. So if you look at the photo period timeline up there with
it looks like we have lost Allison, so let me
okay, I think we're good now. There we go. All right, cool. So just speaking about relevancy, looking at the picture on the bottom right, these are unrooted cuttings. The work put in for floriculture crops to ship these across borders, across states, very, very relevant to maybe not what we do immediately with cannabis, to a great extent with hemp, but one day we will. We'll be breeding in one area and shipping to others for self-propagation and to increase the industry in that regard. And then nutrition. Here's a picture from some work we did with sun impatiens. And what happens when you restrict phosphorus? What happens when you give too much phosphorus? Very, very relevant topics that we want and we will apply to cannabis. So after my PhD, I went out to San Diego, California, and worked for Outco, a medical marijuana company there. did a lot of research, especially early on, looking at LEDs and their capacity and relevancy for flowering, because, at the time, at least, LED flowering was very much looked down upon. So we did a lot of the first initial studies there, with intensity and relevancy of flowering with LEDs. And today, I am owner and CEO of the Hempmine. We do breeding, genetic trials, young plant distribution, so shipping of cuttings across state lines. Do a lot of contract R&D, processing and manufacturing, and then distribution of consumer goods. In every piece of the work we do, R&D comes first, and relevant R&D, which helps those farmers that we're selling varieties to, which provides a product that does what it should, and based off of trials and the relevancy of these plants. Like I've said, we've done a lot of contract research, but we really want to kind of take this to the next level and make our footprint for research bigger. So that's why we thought collaborating with Dr. Faust and his team at Clemson University and forming this new nonprofit would be really beneficial in sharing and, with those pooled resources from different growers and vendors, pushing it a bit further. And so now Dr. Faust is going to talk about what his background is and what he's got going on in his lab.
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today and have a nice audience out there. So in my lab for, I guess, the last 20 years or so, we've worked with primarily ornamentals. We set up a group about 17 years ago, similar to this CRC group that we call the Floriculture Research Alliance, where we work with quite a number of different companies and different universities doing research that basically supports the floriculture industry and tries to answer the questions that are most pressing and limiting the growth and success of that industry. So I will continue to be doing that. We also get money through the USDA Floriculture Nursery Research Initiative to continue to work on floriculture crops in the US. For the last 5 years, I've been doing quite a bit of work with cut flower production in South America, specifically Colombia, and that work's been funded through the American Floral Endowment. A lot of it has focused on botrytis, which we're hoping to bring some of that expertise into the cannabis world too. So the cannabis research that we're have started over the past year and a half, it's kind of like the third leg on this stool of projects that we have going on at Clemson. Specifically within the cannabis team, we have 2 graduate students, and a master's and a PhD student. And then we have a whole herd of undergraduates. I guess it should be no surprise that it's not hard to motivate undergraduates to work with cannabis. Again, floriculture is fun, and I love it. But I've never seen such enthusiasm and commitment to greenhouse work and research as we have gotten from students that are interested in their future careers in cannabis. So we have a very good team of undergraduates that actually make a pretty huge contribution to our research efforts.
Yes, so Dr. Faust's team of undergraduates have been amazing. Many of them you see on the list there were actually interns this past summer at the Hempmine, and like he said, having these students that are just so excited, that have some horticultural training, is really invaluable, and that's something that we'd love to share, because I think I had to call it quits at 8 interns, but there were many more that would have loved to work with us. So I think sharing those interns, bringing in interns from other universities, would be really beneficial for this group, for people looking for young, passionate people that potentially could be molded to be a great employee in the future.
So just to share with you some of the capacity that we have for research at Clemson. Right now, we have committed one full greenhouse for stock plant production or the vegetative phase of cannabis production. The upper right-hand picture shows some mother plants. We have 3 benches in that greenhouse. We have a propagation house with 1 bench dedicated exclusively for cannabis propagation. We have a nice blackout curtain greenhouse that we use for flowering. We've installed new LEDs from Philips in there, so we can provide 600 micromole per square meter per second to the flowering crop, in addition to sunlight. And as you can see in the lower middle picture, you can see up the blade. On the bottom left, you can see that's a photoperiod study we have done where we've divided up our benches into different zones in order to prevent light pollution. In the lower right-hand picture, you see our drying room. Again, this is dedicated to cannabis drying and curing. So we have quite a bit of space available and have been using it pretty much full steam ahead this past year. So next slide, Allison. And in our lab, we've been doing some gas analysis, looking at CO2, oxygen, ethylene measurements during drying and into curing. We've have some nice equipment in terms of moisture analyzers and bud trimmers, and as you can see, we have some jars on the bottom left hand for some post-harvest studies where we're looking at, again, the drying and curing environment. And then the next slide is we have an analytical lab on campus that does your regular cannabinoid and terpenoid profiles, but what we've actually started to do this winter is look at headspace analysis during drying and curing, so we can identify the volatiles that are actually in the headspace, as opposed to just analyzing what is in the tissue in terms of terpenes. And similarly, we can ignite buds and analyze the smoke from those buds. So those are 2 novel things that we've just started to look at and are excited about what possibilities those have in terms of evaluating the quality of the volatiles that the flowers are putting off, and also during smoking.
All right, so I turned my video off. Hopefully that'll help a little bit with the internet connection. I apologize. But now we're gonna go through the CRC and talk about different things, what our mission is. And so, our mission is to partner with stakeholders in the cannabis industry. This is everything from other scientists, growers, vendors, different sort of ancillary service. So, having groups, let's say, for example, a testing facility that we can trust and lean on for certain answers. And so, when you combine these resources of different individuals, what it provides is something much greater than a business could do by itself. It's cooperation, it's networking, it's getting to know each other, as well as what problems are different growers facing. And the really cool thing that I believe in and think this group will have to offer is the prioritization of projects. So, what's going on in the industry right now that we're struggling with? Is it rooting? Is it yield? Terpene retention? And, that could be in the drying or curing process. We want you to be able to come forward and say, this is something we're really struggling with. I know a lot of the businesses we work with are struggling with them too. And we want to know those things because we want this to be research, not just that other scientists, want to read journals about and not really be able to maybe apply that information immediately. We want this to be research that is immediately applicable. And that, those answers and those questions that are presented come nowhere else but from the grower and from those doing that every single day. What else we'll provide is exclusive grower SOPs. And so everything from propagation, sanitation, et cetera, et cetera. And so these will be SOPs that we've worked on, that hold true, that we believe in. There'll also be SOPs from vendors. Just for example, say you do sterilize your rooms with Sanidate. Well, let's specialize and put those SOPs in an area where you can go have them for your team and have access to them. We're going to have monthly updates, newsletters, webinars. We're going to combine other peer-reviewed journals that we find relevant into our website where you have access to that. And then, of course, every month go over, well, here's what we're doing, here's what we're researching, what as a grower, what could we add to this to make it better? What else do we need to put in our to-do list as far as research? And then, of course, there's opportunities for individual businesses that, maybe having a problem that they don't necessarily want to discuss with the whole group. And so we can definitely do individual research, consulting, that sort of thing to help specific questions. So we will have an annual event. And so this will be in person where we'll invite you out. This coming year, it'll probably be January or February of 2023. And most likely we'll be at Clemson University for year one. And so, we'll sit down, we'll go over all of these projects in depth. We'll get to network, talk to each other, and really plan for that next year. In September, we also have the Hempmine Field Day. And this is an annual event. This coming year will be year 4 of doing this. But keep in mind, the Hempmine is only about 30 minutes away from Clemson University. So, this coming year, we would love to have you come out, see the Hempmine Field Day, where we'll have large scale projects, hemp, pheno hunts, that sort of thing. But then we can also hop over to Clemson University and actually see the greenhouse and see what's going on there. All right, so what membership looks like. And so we've broke it down into different tiers based off of revenue, based off of, where these members fit in, students, academic researchers, etc. And so, these might look like large numbers, but when you do not have the capacity or team to be able to do this yourself for your business, spread over a 12-month period, the return on being able to improve different processes, increase your efficiency, maybe switch to using vendors that are a little more a little less inexpensive, those really add up to make your business grow and make sense of these sorts of costs. And so, I really was hoping that I could make this group be a write-off. And though it is a nonprofit, the way that we've been advised through lawyers and accountants is that because it's a membership due sort of organization, that we can't write off those credits or write off those contributions. But what we can do is have this donation be a research-based tax credit. And so, we don't want to only have benefits in this group from horticulture, which it will be our main focus, but we do want to help in other ways. And so, for example, we have one company that will be part of this group that their main focus is to help organizations understand what parts of their R&D, and it might even pieces that you don't even realize are R&D, whether it's you formulating a new tincture, or maybe you are trying out different fertilizers. Those are all R&D projects to help your company thrive. And so this accounting firm can help us help you figure out what pieces in your company that you're currently doing can actually be a tax credit, and to help you financially in that way. And so we are calling our members who sign up before March our seed members. And so what this is those first members who jump on board with us, understanding that it'll still probably take a couple months to get our website just right. And of course, with a new organization, there's always kind of those kinks you've got to work out. So to help you get through those kind of tough spots with us, what we want to do is your annual fee now will count towards 14 months membership. We want to give you a swag pack, t-shirts and stickers and things like that to represent our organization. All right, and so we just want to touch on a little bit further, a little deeper of some of the research we have going on now, and what this membership will look like, and even more so because of you and by having this collaboration. So this past year at the Hempmine, we did some research for ProMix, and so ProMix is a microbe company. They produce a mycorrhizae that has benefit to the plant in different ways. And so this is here in South Carolina at our hemp fields, where we dipped the rooted clones prior to planting. And then from there, we're able to take weekly elemental leaf tissue samples. We looked at the yield at the end, looked at all sorts of things from disease resistance, et cetera, et cetera. But, this is just an example of what we can do on large scale. Dr. Faust is able to get extremely nitty gritty with the research he does there on campus. But for companies that are looking for something on a much greater scale, on a commercial scale, this is absolutely something we can do there in the Hempmine fields. Lighting was something else that we really focused on this year. And so, being able to manipulate your plant to its greatest ability to maximize your profits. And so this field here, if you look at the picture on the right, there's a pole with a light. And so what we were doing was looking at this group of plants all having to have over 18 hours of light to stay vegetative, meaning anywhere in the US, if you plant it in the field as a clone, it would flower, because we're only getting, maybe 16 hours during those summer months. And so by applying this light to extend the day, we were able to grow these certain plants as large as we wanted. And then just simply turn the light off and the plants flower. And so, we see that this is going to be something really important, very important for hemp right now, but I think this is going to be even more so important for marijuana once it spreads out and we're growing it outside much more than indoors. And so, just some more things, on the bottom left was a compost trial that we did, looking at when you add compost, what does it add to the soil? What does the flower take up? What does it increase? We get very nitty gritty with this, looking at elementals, looking at potency, terpene production, et cetera. And on the right was a project we did with Liquor. So looking at photosynthetic rates during the flowering cycle. And Dr. Faust.
I'll give you a summary of the projects, a very general summary of projects that we've been working on over the past year to give you some idea of some of our interest. And although certainly what we'll do with this group is not limited by these, but it gives you some idea of some of the things that we have been working on. And we divide these projects into 5 different areas, which are the blue titles. We have been looking at stock plant or mother plant production in terms of productivity and cutting yields, how to maximize cutting productivity. We've looked at the effects of cutting size in terms of leaf length, leaf size and stem length in order to optimize, again, cutting production and to give you cuttings that can be efficiently spaced in propagation and yet still root at the desired rooting efficiencies. We have been doing some nutrition on stock plants because we actually started doing propagation work, and we quickly realized that the nutrition of the stock plant was pretty critical to propagation success. And so in the propagation environment, we've been doing some large experiments looking at, again, the nutrition of the stock plant combined with nutrition of the cutting in the first 14 days after sticking, as well as mismanagement practices. We were initially, again, a year and a half ago, told that you really see a lot of difference commercially between propagating under domes and propagating under mist. In floriculture, we only propagate under mist and it works pretty well. But we had very good propagators we were working with that were having problems with using their mist booms in greenhouses, and actually we're going back to using domes, which is terribly inefficient and inconvenient to use. And so again, we're looking at and what we think really is the issue here with domes is that domes help reduce leaching of nutrients in propagation, and the nutrition of the cutting and in the rooting media are important. Also, we've looked at media moisture content because, again, the growers using mist, one of the concerns was, well, perhaps we're just over misting, and domes were helping us to avoid over misting. And so we've now looked quite closely at rooting moisture contents during the first 14 days in propagation, and have a pretty good handle on how to manage moisture much better now. So basically what we're trying to do is have cannabis to be similar to most floriculture crops like petunias and impatiens, where you're having 100% rooting that's fast and uniform and repeatable. And mostly what we see in the industry is that growers struggle with that. And that's our goal, and we're working. I think we'll achieve that with proper selection of genetics. There are certainly varieties that are tough to work with. And probably just need to be rogued. We've looked at quite a number of different rooting hormones, trying to identify the sweet spot in terms of IBA and NAA concentrations to use for propagation. We've been working with a media propagating supply company, trying to develop a designer media specifically for propagating cannabis. On the flowering end, we've done some photoperiod work, looking at really asking the question, is the 18-12-hour schedule really optimal? Or is there some other combination of photoperiod that would give us higher yields? Or allow us to deliver higher DLIs, which would give us higher yields. I mentioned that we have done a good bit of botrytis work over the years, and we certainly have struggled with botrytis in our greenhouse production, especially this last summer. And so we're trying to transfer some of that knowledge from flowering crops like roses to cannabis. And this, I would say, initially we haven't had a lot of success with botrytis control, but we're certainly learning some things about how to manage it better. And so this is, I think, there's a lot of opportunity here. In terms of nutrition, we've been looking at flushing, trying to identify whether this is just an old bad habit from the past, or if there's actually some benefit in terms of better quality products with a flushing treatment prior to harvest. One of the areas that we're most excited about, we really just have started this past fall, is looking at drying and curing, how the processes of drying impact quality perception and retention of fragrances and smoking quality, and whether, is there anything to the curing process that really is beneficial in terms of plant quality or bud quality. So we're just starting in this area, and certainly very excited about some of the potential that we see for guiding this industry to really better management practices. So, and then question mark, again, with this group, the idea is, just like we've done with the Floriculture Research Alliance over the past couple of decades, is that, we initiate projects, we get feedback from the grower supporters, companies that support the work, and then refine the projects or go in different directions depending on what the needs and interests are for the industry. So again, these are just really my ideas from my visitation to the cannabis growers in the past couple of years. And but we'd be looking forward to hear what your ideas are and see how we can develop some projects that would be most useful for your success.
All right, so just to give you a very general timeline. So right now it's January, webinar kickoff. We want to get together again the last week of January to discuss with members. You've seen what we're working on, you've seen kind of the main topics. Well, what else is there? What else would you like to see? In February, we will do it again, as well as have a webinar. In March, we plan to have the website launched by then, but we'll certainly provide SOPs and other things we mentioned before, maybe on a different platform, just until we can have the website up and ready. And then, of course, throughout the year, we will have a monthly webinar with questions and answers and discussion. And so my plan by February is to have this hashed out a bit more, give you an idea of, well, who's going to be giving the webinar in February, and what will be the discussion, and, have it a little more detailed for your understanding. And, even as members, these all will be recorded. So if you can't be there live with us, you'll be able to check it out. And if you have questions or comments, you can always email us and let us know what you think. So that is basically it for, what we're going to discuss. I just want to make note that you see the email there, crc@thehempmine.com. If you do want to join, please shoot us an email there, and we'll get you signed up and get your membership going. But I guess now we should open it up for questions and see, if we can help you understand any further.
Allison, you might want to turn on your video. I think we will give it a try.
All right. Yep. Just let me know if it starts getting spotty again, and I can turn it off. I'm going to look through the questions. All right. Okay, for cannabis production input companies like New Leaf, would that be a separate membership? Yes, so that you would qualify as a vendor membership, since you are selling products to farmers. And so, yeah, if you go back a few slides when we post the recording, and I can certainly send our sheets where it shows membership pricing and that sort of thing to understand where you fall.
I turn the video back off because you're just, it's not. Allison, I think you have to turn your video off. It went bad again. And so we didn't hear your answer.
Okay. So the question was for a cannabis input company like New Leaf, what would be the membership type? And so this type of member would be a vendor member. You can certainly email us at the CRC, and we have a flyer that shows the pricing breakdown of that. Are you hearing me okay?
Oh, it's good.
Okay. All right, let's see. All right, Jim, have you put any publications out yet on flushing?
Nope. No, we still have a good bit of work to do to iron that out.
Okay. Have there been any interest in developing true breeding lines and identifying disease-resistant genes? We are working on that on the Hempmine side. I don't think we plan necessarily for this coalition to get into breeding itself. We certainly may one day, but as a company, the Hempmine is certainly doing that.
So there's a question from Adam. Do you have any plans or interest in for molecular marker development research? And I would say at this point, the answer would be no, in that, that's not in, I would say, Allison or my skill set. Depending on, what direction and how big this gets, we certainly would hope to bring in additional researchers that would have different expertises. But at this point, we don't expect to be doing molecular work.
Are you open to doing international research? Yes, we would love to collaborate with people anywhere that's working with this plant. Okay. Will there be work done on outreach and interpretation of research findings to break down practical applications of research findings for growers? So I'm reading this as published journals broken down for easier understanding. I don't know, Dr. Faust, that could be a good project for your students.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what can be discussed in the monthly Q&As if people have questions about what is known available in the literature, that we could have those discussions for sure, because there's a lot of good work being done on cannabis by a number of universities these days, and certainly we can help provide some access and understanding of some of that work that's being done. Allison, there's one here for you from Javier about any plans or thoughts on autoflowers.
Yeah, so we do work with some autoflowers. At least in my experience on the hemp side, there's a lot of work still need to be done for consistency, a lot of work. Honestly, I lean a little more towards the semi-autos, and so that would be the plants that they're not true autos in the sense that they only reproduce by seed, but they are autoflower in the sense that in the US we only get about 16 hours of light and they need 18 to stay vegetative, and so we can manipulate the photo period to take advantage of that and have continual flowering plants year round, but they are able to be vegetatively reproduced, and that there provides a lot of consistency.
There's a question, is the focus in the coalition geared toward hemp, THC, cannabis, fiber, grain? it is not going to be toward fiber grain. We are able to work with hemp plants in South Carolina at both Allison's farm and at my greenhouses. So we will be using hemp plants in our experimentation. We don't think that makes much of a difference in terms of most of the research that we're doing. We think will be completely transferable to THC varieties. So the work will be done in the short term. We're expecting South Carolina to be a medical state within a year or two. Although we've said that for the last year or two, but it seems to be coming. So that will allow us to transition. But in the meantime, I think the work we do is quite relevant for the THC market.
And just to mention, the host plants that we're using in these studies, they are hemp plants, but ones which are geared towards smokable flower. And so, it's very dense buds, high terpenes, a lot of the research in curing, all done this in the same manner you would for marijuana. So, yep, it is hemp, but we do plan whenever there's opportunity to switch and be able to do marijuana research too. And then the other thing is, we've already had members mention and suggest the ability to take some of the projects we're doing with hemp and maybe replicate at their facility. We're certainly open to that to gather greater detail.
Yeah. The varieties that we're working with are really for smokable CBD production. That's certainly a nice growing area in this part of the country. And then so our plants look like THC varieties.
Yeah, so looking at quick plug question, formulating the ideal starter plug as well as to lessen rooting times. Would it give us the opportunity to trial different formulations?
Yeah, so yeah, we're looking at when we evaluate rooting, we're evaluating at 14 days and really transplant at 21 days. And so, we're looking for uniformity that's at that point and fast rooting. Again, we can assess different media and I think we are getting a handle on what physical properties, water holding capacity, for example, would be most beneficial for developing a soilless medium for propagation of cannabis.
Yeah, and as far as your question goes, it depends. We do want to do non-biased research. And if you are looking for trials for a commercial product, it kind of depends. If this is something where you don't want to share your results, because potentially there always could be a chance of negative results, and that's not something you necessarily want to make public. Those sort of specialized trials would be a different setup than simply being a member, but that's something we can definitely discuss offline.
Yeah, keep in mind that we're a publicly funded institute. The work that we do is, we essentially make it available. The idea of participating in a group like this is to generate enough funds to actually get work done and allows you to be at the cutting edge of work that's being done. But recognizing that a lot of that work will eventually reach the general public in terms of, because it's going to come out in scientific publications. In terms of product development, where a company has interest in a specific product that they have and how relevant, how useful that product is, how well it works for the cannabis industry, we can certainly do evaluations. The catch is, as Allison mentioned, if you really want exclusivity to that information, then that's a different fee structure. Because that's not going to be information that's available to the group. And the idea really behind this group is that it's a shared system where we do research that then is then shared with everybody in the group, and that's the benefit of participating, not that some folks have exclusive information within the group. So, if we're going to do something under the umbrella of CRC, it's going to be available to everybody that's in that group.
And any issues receiving funding from THC companies? No, not at all. Our banks are very comfortable with this being a cannabis nonprofit. And so, whether it's a marijuana producer or hemp, that doesn't matter.
Allison, there's a question about clones available for hemp CBD.
Yes, absolutely. So Florence, if you would shoot us an email, crc@thehempmine.com, and I can send you our catalog, and we can talk more about your research there in Columbia. Well, if we missed anybody's questions scrolling through, we'll wait another couple of minutes and see. If you think of something later, again, just shoot us an email and we're happy to answer it. Well, not necessarily counterproductive. If you've been in academia, it may take a year or two to publish research. And so, with protocols changing every 6 months, and just research being updated all the time, there's really a big benefit of learning it as it comes out of the greenhouse, versus waiting, a year or two and then having to really digest a peer-reviewed journal. So, I understand your question and the statement, but I think, there's a lot more to this than simply seeing a peer-reviewed journal.
Question about plant analysis. We do some here. We also do some with a commercial lab. So we go both ways depending on the project that we're working on, and how accessible the campus lab is at the time we need it. But sometimes we do send samples out to commercial labs for potency analysis. Absolutely. When the opportunities take place, we certainly would apply for a grant to help push the research further. Yeah, just commenting on grants, you need a granting agency to provide a grant, and in plant sciences, those are either through private organizations or through the government. And there aren't government funds available for this crop for research at this moment. And so then you're looking at private sources, and to my knowledge, the cannabis industry doesn't have any organized grants available. And so that's kind of the way to go. The reason we're going with this model, it's a way for the private industry to drive some research projects where there otherwise is not funds available. And the other idea is that large companies have the ability to have their own R&D, but a lot of companies don't have that. And the idea is here that you have a number of companies can pool resources, and then they all benefit from the work that's done. And so they're able to generate research that they would not be able to do themselves because of the financial limitations. So basically, you purchase a piece of the pie and you get the whole pie is really the idea. So it's an opportunity that's out there that we hope you take advantage of.
And so the labs we currently work with, actually us and Clemson is Result Group, also part of the CACHA labs. family, I guess you could call it. And then the analytical methods at Clemson, I'm sure they have HPLCs, MSGCs, pretty much anything you could want, I believe Clemson has.
Yep, pretty much.
Yes, do our bylaws take into account member voting? Yes, we absolutely will take in member votes. Those will be provided once membership is granted.
Question of other professors at Clemson involved? Not right at the moment. I do do cannabis research in a team with Dr. Adelberg, who is a tissue culture propagation expert. And so he and I have some projects going on together. He's not participating at this moment. Again, it depends on the scale of and how many companies we get involved as to how far this expands beyond Allison's farm and my lab. You know, certainly like in the Floriculture Research Alliance, we have 6 universities involved, and that's just simply because the scale of support from the industry warrants that number of universities, because not one lab can do all the work that's necessary from all the companies that support it. So it really depends on the success of how many people want to participate as to how many universities end up participating, because there's only so much I can do. And you know, so we expand it as there's interest and need. The other thing that I'll say is that, you know, this is, you know, a membership is a 1-year commitment. And so as you can imagine, we are, you know, basically under the gun to do something useful with your support in a year. So our projects are, you know, not long-term projects where we're looking to have something interesting 5 years from now. We know that you expect a return on your investment. And so, you know, we have to get off our asses and do something useful and fairly immediate, because, you know, this time next year you expect something useful to have come from it. You know, so, you know, there's motivation on our end, and there's also, you know, because we obviously don't want to just do this for 1 year. We would hope that and expect that you would find great value in this approach and would want to come back the next year because it was worth your while financially. And so our goal is to make it worth your while financially. And so we want to be successful, and we want you to be successful so that we can continue to be successful and do the things that we're good at.
And yeah, like he was saying with the Floriculture Research Alliance, you know, we'd love to have other universities get involved and join. You know, with a lot of universities, even this past year, getting involved in hemp, you know, I'm certain there's a lot of kind of repeat experimentation happening. And, you know, as we expand and have other universities involved, which I know Dr. Faust does to a great extent already, you know, I think that would be great for the whole industry, you know, working off each other, not necessarily doing the same experiments at different locations. That sounds great, Emily. Just shoot me an email or give me a call. And thank you, Javier. All right, I guess we'll call that a wrap. But yeah, shoot us an email if there's any other questions or you're ready to join. We're excited to have you and share results we have already and get new ones going.
I appreciate everybody's time.
All right, thank you, everybody.